You think your last name is just a label, something you scrawl on a form and forget. It isn't. If your surname appears on the list I'm about to show you, then you are not simply Irish by heritage. You are connected to a specific dynasty, a specific stretch of kingdom, a specific line of kings who ruled this island long before England ever set foot on it. 12 surnames, 12 bloodlines. And recent DNA breakthroughs have done something the old genealogy books never could. They have traced these names back to their true royal roots, to the high kings, the provincial kings, the lords of the isles and the sea. And some of those roots reach places no one expected. By the end of this video, you will know exactly where your name stands inside one of the oldest royal systems in Europe. Stay until the final surnames, because several of them carry origins that were hunted, banned, or nearly erased by the crown that came to conquer them. Your name survived. The question is what it survived, and what your ancestors did to make sure it reached you. Let's begin with a name that sounds like a throne, because it was one. We start with the name that sits closest to the crown of all, O'Brien. In Irish, O'Brien, the descendant of Brian. And the Brian in question is not just anyone. He is Brian Boru, the most famous high king in all of Irish history. The name itself is thought to reach back to an old Celtic root, meaning high, or noble, or exalted, and the man wore it well. From his base at Killaloe on the River Shannon, Brian rose over 30 years from the chief of an obscure tribe called the Dalgacase to the undisputed high king of all Ireland. He broke the power of the Vikings. He shattered rival kings, and at the Battle of Clontarf in the year 1014, he won the fight that united Ireland under a single ruler. But he never saw the victory. Tradition holds he was cut down in his tent by a retreating Norse warrior. On the morning after the battle, an old man praying while his armies won the day. His descendants took his name and ruled the kingdom of Thomond for almost 5 centuries, with strongholds at Bunratty and Dromoland in County Clare. And the harp that sits on every Irish coin, every Irish passport, every glass of Guinness, is still called the Brian Boru harp. If your name is O'Brien, the blood of the last great high king may run in you. And the next name belongs to a dynasty even older, one that ruled the north for 1,000 years. The second name is O'Neill. In Irish, O'Neill, the descendant of Neil, and this is a name whose roots vanish into legend. It traces back to Neil, of the 9 hostages, a warrior king of the late 4th or early 5th century, who is said to have seized a royal hostage from each kingdom he conquered, 9 in all, and earned his title in blood. From his sons came the Ute Nail, the single most powerful royal dynasty in early Irish history, the family that supplied high king after high king from the Hill of Tara. The name Niall is usually read as champion, but the surname itself comes later, from Niall Glunduv, Niall of the Black Knee, a high king slain fighting the Norsemen in the year 919. It was his grandsons who first carried the name as we know it. For nearly 4 centuries, from 1232 until 1616, the O'Neills ruled as kings of Tyrone in the north, and they were among the very last Gaelic lords to bow to the English crown. If your name is O'Neill, you carry what may be the oldest traceable royal lineage in all of Western Europe, and the third name belongs to the men who held the high kingship at the very end, when the world was about to change forever. The third name is O'Connor. In Irish, O Concover, the descendant of Concover, a name often read as lover of hounds or champion. The Concover at its root was a king of Connacht who died around the year 971, and his line rose from the ancient royal site of Cruachan to rule the entire western province. But the O'Connors carry a distinction no other family can claim. They gave Ireland its last 2 high kings. Turlough O'Connor, who ruled through the first half of the 12th century, was said to have built the first stone castles and the first stone bridges in Ireland, and he commissioned the famous Cross of Cong. And then came his son, Rory O'Connor. Rory was the last high king Ireland would ever have. He fought for years to hold back the Anglo-Norman invasion, but the tide could not be turned, and with his submission, the ancient high kingship effectively came to an end. Father and son lie buried together at Clonmacnoise. The family's descendants still hold their seat at Clonalis House in County Roscommon, where the inauguration stone of the Kings of Connacht survives to this day. If your name is O'Connor, your blood may run straight back to the last man to rule all of Ireland as king. And the fourth name was born from a head shaped like a helmet, and from the family of Brian Boru himself. The fourth name is Kennedy, in Irish, O'Cinneide, and the meaning is wonderfully blunt. It comes from can, meaning head, joined with a word read as helmeted, or grim, or ugly. The helmet-headed one. This was no insult in its day. The original Cinea was the nephew of Brian Boru, born of the same royal Dalgesees of Thomond. The Kennedys did not descend from Brian directly, but from his close kin, and they grew into one of the most powerful families of that royal grouping. They left their homeland near Killaloe in Clare and carved out a new territory in North Tipperary, where they ruled as Lords of Ormond for over 400 years. The name survived the centuries, crossed the Atlantic, and rose to a height even a high king might have envied. The 35th President of the United States, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, carried that ancient Thomond name into the White House. If your name is Kennedy, the royal blood of Brian Boru's own family may be yours. And the fifth name belongs to the bitter rivals of that very dynasty, the Kings of the South. The fifth name is McCarthy, in Irish, McCarthy, the son of Carthach, a name connected to the idea of the loving one. But there was nothing gentle about how this dynasty was forged. Carthach himself, the founder, was an Aegonacht king who died in the year 1045, and he did not die peacefully. Tradition records that he was burned alive in his own home, the house set deliberately ablaze by a rival family allied to the Dalgesees, the kin of Brian Boru. For a century and a half, the McCarthys and the O'Briens waged war for the soul of Munster, until the kingdom was finally split in two. The McCarthys took the south, the kingdom of Desmond, across what is now Cork and Kerry, and they ruled it for nearly 500 years. They built Cormac's Chapel on the Rock of Cashel, and one of their lords raised Blarney Castle, whose famous stone is still kissed for the gift of eloquence. If your name is McCarthy, you descend from the Kings of the South, a dynasty born in fire, and the sixth name ends with one of the most haunting departures in Irish history. The sixth name is O'Donnell, in Irish, O'Domhell, the descendant of Domhell, a name that means world ruler, or world mighty. Like the O'Neills, the O'Donnells sprang from the line of Niall of the Nine Hostages, through his son Conall, who was said to have been baptized by St. Patrick himself. It is from Conall that their kingdom took its name, Tir Hunnell, the land of Conall, the rugged northwestern country we now call Donegal. Their greatest figure was Red Hugh O'Donnell. As a teenager, he was kidnapped and held hostage in Dublin Castle by the English for years, and legend tells that when he finally escaped across the Wicklow Mountains in the dead of winter, he lost toes to the frost. He returned to lead, alongside the O'Neills, the most serious challenge English rule in Ireland had ever faced. But after their defeat, the story ends in exile. In 1607, the O'Donnell lords sailed from Lough Swilly with the flower of the Gaelic nobility, never to return. They called it the Flight of the Earls, and it marked the end of the old Gaelic world. If your name is O'Donnell, you descend from the kings of Tyrconnell, who chose exile over surrender. Before I show you the final six, here is something most people watching never realize about their own name. If you've ever looked at your surname and wondered where it truly fits into the royal lines of Ireland, I've put the whole map together in a guide called Where Do You Really Come From? The link is in the description below. But stay right here, because what comes next is the part most people completely miss. The names ahead include a king's son who took a saint's name, a dynasty that ruled a lake with its own private navy, and a family so feared that an entire walled city prayed to God for protection from them. The seventh name belongs to a king's son who carried the name of a saint instead of his father, Kavanaugh, in Irish, Kavanaugh. And here is what makes it strange. It has no O and no Mac, almost alone among the great Irish names, because it was never a patronymic. It comes from Covan, a name tied to the idea of the gentle or beloved one, the same root as the name Kevin. The first to carry it was Domhnall, the eldest son of Diarmait mac Murchada, the 12th century king of Leinster, the very king who invited the Anglo-Normans into Ireland and changed its history forever. Domhnall was fostered at a monastery dedicated to St. Kavanaugh, and from that fostering he took his name. For centuries afterward, the Kavanaughs held on to the claim of the kingship of Leinster, ruling the upland country of Carlow and Wexford, raiding the English-controlled Pale, and resisting the crown long after the Norman tide had washed over the rest of the province. Their motto means, simply, the seed of Diarmait. If your name is Kavanaugh, you descend from the royal house of Leinster, and the 8th name ruled a kingdom of water with a fleet of its own. The 8th name is Maguire. In Irish, Mag Uid Here, the son of Odhar, a name meaning the dun-colored, or pale one. From the late 1200s, the Maguires rose to rule the kingdom of Fermanagh in the north, a country of lakes and islands, and they held it for some 400 years. 15 Maguire chieftains ruled in succession, so completely that the entire county was simply known as Maguire's country. Their seat was Enniskillen Castle, set on the water, and here is the detail that brings their power to life. They are said to have policed the Great Lough with a private navy of 1,500 boats, a royal fleet, on an inland sea. When the old order finally collapsed, it was a Maguire who personally acquired the very ship in France that carried the earls away into exile. If your name is Maguire, you descend from the late kings of Fermanagh, and the 9th name carries one of the most epic survival stories in all of Irish history. The 9th name is O'Sullivan, in Irish, O'Sullivan, and scholars still argue over its meaning. The root is Sual, the eye, but whether it means the one-eyed, the dark-eyed, or the hawk-eyed has never been settled. What is certain is the royalty behind it. The O'Sullivans sprang from the Eogannacht, the ancient royal dynasty of Munster, and after the Norman invasion drove them west, they became lords of the Beara Peninsula in the far southwest. And then came their darkest and most heroic hour. In the winter of 1602, after the fall of their stronghold, Donald Cam O'Sullivan Bear led around 1,000 of his people on a desperate march north, across the length of a war-torn, frozen, starving Ireland. Some 500 kilometers through enemy country in the dead of winter. Of the 1,000 who set out, only 35 reached safety at the end. If your name is O'Sullivan, you descend from the royal house of Munster, and from one of the great epics of human endurance. And the 10th name was carried by the descendants of a raven king. The 10th name is Byrne. In Irish, O'Bran, the descendant of Bran. And Bran is a word that means raven. The family traces back to Bran, a king of Leinster who died around the year 1052, of the old Dunlange dynasty that ruled the province for centuries. When the Anglo-Normans stormed in, the O'Byrnes were driven from the rich plains of Kildare into the wild mountains of Wicklow, and there, in that high, broken country, they became one of the most stubborn forces of resistance the English ever faced. From their stronghold at Ballinacor, the chieftain Fiach MacHugh O'Byrne crushed an English army at Glenmalure in 1580, a victory still sung about today. He even helped Red Hugh O'Donnell escape from Dublin Castle. Their deeds were gathered into a book of Gaelic poetry, called the Lever Branach, the Book of the O'Byrnes. If your name is Byrne, you descend from the Raven Kings of Leinster, who turned the mountains into a fortress. And the 11th name was so feared that a whole city prayed for deliverance from it. The 11th name is O'Flaherty, in Irish, O'Flaith-Hartig, and the meaning is pure royalty. It joins Flaith, meaning prince or ruler, with a word meaning bright, the bright ruler. The O'Flahertys descended from the Ubriún of Connacht, kinsmen of the very O'Connors who became high kings, and they ruled first east of Lough Corrib, and then, pushed west by the Normans, across the wild Atlantic country of Connemara and out to the Aran Islands. They were a seafaring, warlike dynasty, and their reputation was so fearsome that the merchants of the walled city of Galway are said to have carved a prayer above their west gate. From the ferocious O'Flahertys, "Good Lord deliver us." One of their lords married Grace O'Malley, the legendary pirate queen herself. If your name is O'Flaherty, you descend from the bright rulers of the West, a name a whole city feared. And now the 12th and final name, a name that ruled before the kingdoms, and one that came close to ruling them all. The 12th name is McLachlan, in Irish, McLachlan, and the name carries the echo of the Vikings within it. For Lachlan was the old Irish word for the land of the Norsemen, the son of the Norse warrior. But the family that bore it was anything but foreign. The McLachlans were a senior branch of the northern Uwinale, the same great royal stock as the O'Neills, descended from Niall of the Nine Hostages himself, and for a time they outshone their cousins entirely. In the 12th century, Muirchertach McLachlan rose to become High King of Ireland, holding the supreme title that so many dynasties spent centuries fighting over. For a generation, this was the most powerful family in the north. But power is a wheel, and when it turned against them. The rival branch, the O'Neills, eclipsed them, and the McLachlans faded from the heights of kingship, even as their name survived in the hands of countless families who never knew what it once meant. If your name is McLachlan, you descend from a High King of Ireland, from a dynasty that touched the very summit of power. 12 surnames, 12 dynasties, 12 corridors leading back through high kings and provincial kings, through Viking blood and saintly fosterings, through frozen winter marches and private navies and prayers carved over city gates. And here is what the DNA breakthroughs really revealed. Your name was never just a label. It is a kingdom. It is a stretch of territory your ancestors ruled. It is a set of loyalties that men fought for, fled for, and in more than one case died for. Some of these names began on a throne. Some began in fire, in exile, in the mountains, or on the open sea. But every single one of them survived, carried across oceans by families who left Ireland with almost nothing and refused to let the name die with them. If your surname was on this list, then somewhere in your blood is the memory of a crown. So tell me, drop your surname in the comments and tell me which dynasty your bloodline comes from. And if you know the story your family carried out of Ireland, say it, because those stories deserve to be heard. If you made it to the end, subscribe. Every week we go deeper into the names people carry without ever knowing what they truly mean.